The flashing red and blue lights painted my sister-in-law's worn-out colonial house in alternating colors, turning the quiet Bloomington street into an impromptu light show. My hands trembled as I stood in the middle of her cracked driveway, watching Officer James Nolan approach with measured steps. Behind him, Vanessa, my husband's older sister, stood on the porch with her arms crossed over her, protruding baby bump, a smug smirk plastered across her face. "That's her, officer!" she shouted, pointing at me like I was some criminal. "She abandoned her responsibilities! She left us all stranded!" I couldn't believe what was happening. Abandoned responsibilities? I was being accused of abandonment as if I were some runaway mother neglecting her own children. My stomach twisted with both fear and fury, the knot tightening as neighbors peered through curtains at the unfolding drama. "Ma'am," Officer Nolan said, his voice steady but firm, "could you explain the situation?" Before I could open my mouth, Vanessa's voice cut through the evening air again. "She's been watching my kids for months now. We have an arrangement, and today, with no warning, she just packed up and left. My children were alone for hours before I got home from my doctor's appointment." That was a blatant lie. I'd waited until her eldest daughter, 14-year-old Mia, had returned from school. I'd never leave those children truly alone, despite what their own mother regularly did. "Ms. Hayes," the officer turned to me. "Is this true?" I swallowed hard, reaching for my phone with unsteady fingers. "No, it's not. I've been helping with Vanessa's 4 children out of kindness, not obligation, and I never left them unattended." "She's family," Vanessa shouted. "That's what family does." Family. The word felt hollow coming from her mouth. For 3 years, I'd been cooking, cleaning, driving her kids to school, helping with homework, even paying for groceries out of my own pocket. All while trying to rebuild my career in graphic design, the reason my husband Michael and I had moved to Bloomington in the first place. "I have something you should see," I said quietly, unlocking my phone and opening my message history with Vanessa. Officer Nolan took the phone, his expression neutral as he began to scroll. I watched his eyebrows lift slightly, then furrow, as he read through the dozens of demanding texts. "Don't bother working tomorrow. Ethan has a dentist appointment at 2. That's your job. You live here rent-free, so babysitting is the least you can do. Stop being dramatic. You're basically our nanny already." And the most recent one, sent just that morning after her pregnancy announcement. "Now that I'm having another baby, you'll have to quit your coffee shop job and those silly classes. The kids need you. That's what family does." The officer's stern face changed as he scrolled through more messages. He turned toward Vanessa, and the smugness she had been wearing like a shield suddenly drained from her face, replaced by shock and the first flickers of shame. "Ma'am," he said to Vanessa, his tone shifting, "these messages suggest there was no formal childcare arrangement. Your sister-in-law appears to have been helping voluntarily, and these texts read more like demands than requests." For the first time in years, I felt a rush of freedom rising inside me. My lips curved into a smile I couldn't hold back as Vanessa stammered, trying to regain control. "She's twisting things," Vanessa protested, her voice rising an octave. "Those are taken out of context." The officer handed my phone back to me. "Ms. Hayes is free to leave if she chooses. There's no legal obligation here." He turned to Vanessa with a warning look. "And filing false claims with the police is a serious matter." In that moment, everything shifted. The power Vanessa had wielded over me for years crumbled beneath the weight of her own words. I hadn't realized how much I'd been carrying until I finally set it down. Behind Vanessa, I could see the 4 children watching from the window. Mia, Ethan, Lily, and Thomas. Their little faces pressed against the glass made my heart ache. I loved them, despite everything. They weren't to blame for their mother's manipulation. And somewhere in that house was my husband Michael, torn between his manipulative sister and me. I wondered if he could hear what was happening, if he would finally see what I had endured all along. The officer gave me a firm nod. "You're free to go, ma'am." As I turned to leave, Vanessa's voice, smaller now, called after me. "Jessica, you can't just walk away. The kids need you. I need you." I paused, not looking back. "No, Vanessa. What you need is to be a mother to your own children." Walking to my car, I felt both lighter and heavier. Lighter for having freed myself from Vanessa's grip, but heavier with the knowledge that those children would suffer for it. Still, I couldn't set myself on fire to keep Vanessa warm anymore. As I drove away from the red and blue lights, from the house that had become my prison, tears streamed down my face. Not tears of sadness, but of release. For 3 years, I'd put my life on hold, sacrificing my dreams at the altar of family obligation. Now, at 29, I was finally choosing myself. My phone buzzed with texts from Michael. I ignored them. He'd have to make his own choice now. Stand with his manipulative sister or with his wife. For too long, he'd been caught in the middle, unwilling to see how his sister's need for help had consumed my identity. The tiny studio apartment I'd rented earlier that day waited for me. Small, sparsely furnished, but gloriously mine. It wasn't much, just a temporary landing place while I figured out my next steps. But as I parked outside and looked up at the window where a single lamp glowed, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step taking me further from Vanessa's control and closer to reclaiming my life. The key turned in the lock, and I stepped into my new beginning. 450 square feet of freedom. I couldn't stop smiling. 3 years earlier, I'd arrived in Bloomington with stars in my eyes. Michael and I had been married for just over a year, and the move from Chicago seemed like the perfect fresh start. The city was, charming, with its limestone buildings and tree-lined streets. And Indiana University offered affordable graphic design courses that could help me transition from my dead-end administrative job to the creative career I'd always wanted. It'll be perfect, Michael had assured me, his blue eyes bright with optimism. We'll be close to Vanessa and the kids, but not too close, just enough to help out. Occasionally. That word echoed in my mind as I unpacked boxes in our modest 2-bedroom rental. Occasionally had turned into regularly, then daily, then all-consuming. It started small. Vanessa would call with an emergency, her babysitter canceling last minute before an important interview, or Ethan running a fever when she couldn't miss work. I'd step in, happy to help family in need. Michael would squeeze my hand gratefully. You're amazing with them, Jess. It means so much to her. In those early days, Vanessa seemed genuinely grateful. She'd bring me coffee or leave thank you notes with childish drawings from the kids. But as weeks became months, the gratitude faded, replaced by expectation. I need you to pick up the kids today, she'd say instead of ask. And Lily has ballet at 4. Michael noticed the shift too, though he minimized it. She's just stressed, he'd explain. Being a single mom to 4 kids isn't easy. I understood that. Vanessa's ex-husband had left when Thomas was just a baby, and she was struggling financially. But understanding someone's difficulty didn't mean sacrificing my own life indefinitely. 6 months after our move, I'd found a part-time job at a local coffee shop. It wasn't graphic design, but it was something of my own. A few hours each day when I wasn't Jessica the babysitter or Jessica the sister-in-law. I'd started taking evening classes at IU, working toward the career I'd put on hold. Vanessa didn't congratulate me. Instead, she frowned. But who will watch the kids when I work late? That should have been my warning sign. But I compromised, arranging my schedule around her needs, fitting my classes and shifts into the small spaces left by her demands. A year into our time in Bloomington, Michael and I had moved into Vanessa's house temporarily, after our landlord sold our rental. The temporary arrangement quickly became permanent as Vanessa's financial situation worsened and Michael suggested we help with her mortgage. It's just until she gets back on her feet, he'd promised, though I'd noticed a pattern with Vanessa. She never quite got back on her feet. There was always another crisis, another need, another reason why she couldn't manage on her own. Our bedroom was in the converted attic, small and stifling in summer, freezing in winter. But it wasn't the discomfort that wore me down. It was the gradual erosion of boundaries. Vanessa would enter without knocking, rummage through my belongings looking for things she'd just borrow, and assign me household tasks as if I were a teenager rather than an adult with my own life and goals. The sink's full of dishes, she'd announce, though most of them were hers. Or, the kids need help with their science projects. Dropping the key. Responsibility in my lap without discussion. Michael witnessed it all but remained caught between loyalties. She's not trying to take advantage, he'd insist. She just doesn't think sometimes. But I saw the calculation in Vanessa's eyes. She knew exactly what she was doing. Slowly, systematically turning a helping hand into an indentured servant. By our 2nd year under her roof, I was essentially raising her children. Mia, the oldest, began calling me for permission instead of her mother. Ethan came to me with his homework questions. Lily wanted me at her dance recitals. Thomas, just 5 years old, crawled into my lap for bedtime stories. I loved those children fiercely, but the situation was unsustainable. My coffee shop hours dwindled as Vanessa's demands increased. My Graphic design studies stretched from a 1-year certificate program to an indefinite timeline. Just take a semester off, Vanessa suggested when Thomas started kindergarten. He's having separation anxiety. He needs stability. What she meant was, he needs you, not me. Michael and I fought about it in whispered arguments in our attic bedroom. She's using me, I'd insist. She's family, he'd counter. And those kids need you. The word family became a weapon, wielded whenever I tried to establish boundaries. Family meant sacrifice. Family meant putting everyone else first. Family meant my dreams didn't matter. Until yesterday, when Vanessa had gathered everyone in the living room, her face flushed with excitement. I have an announcement, she'd declared, hand resting on her stomach. I'm pregnant again. The kids reacted with mixed emotions. Mia rolling her eyes, Ethan and Lily cautiously excited, Thomas confused. Michael had hugged his sister, congratulating her while throwing me a worried glance. I'd stood frozen, connecting the dots. Vanessa had been seeing someone new for a few months, a salesman who traveled frequently. He'd appeared at the house exactly twice. And now another child would join the 4 already being raised largely by someone other than their mother. Later that night, Vanessa had cornered me in the kitchen. This changes things, she'd said, her tone matter-of-fact. With the baby coming, I'll need you full-time. Full-time? I'd repeated, feeling the walls closing in. You'll have to quit that coffee shop job. And honestly, those design classes are just a hobby anyway. The kids need you. That's what family does. The dismissal of my dreams as a hobby was the final straw. The accumulated weight of 3 years of sacrifice crashed down on me, and for the first time, I saw with perfect clarity what my future would be if I stayed. I'd nodded silently, waiting until morning to pack a small bag, withdraw the savings I'd managed to hide away, and rent the tiny studio apartment across town. I'd waited for Mia to come home from school before leaving, making sure the children weren't alone. And now, sitting in my empty studio, surrounded by the few possessions I'd managed to grab, I wondered what would happen next. My phone had dozens of missed calls from Michael, but I wasn't ready to talk to him. He had choices too. Make two. For tonight, I would breathe. For tonight, I would remember what it felt like to be Jessica Hayes, not just an extension of Vanessa's needs. Tomorrow would bring its own battles. But for the first time in 3 years, I was fighting for myself. 3 days passed in the quiet solitude of my studio apartment. 3 days of silencing my phone when Michael called, of fighting the urge to check on the children, of rediscovering what it meant to wake up and answer to no one but myself. I spent hours sitting by the window, watching people pass on the street below. Students with backpacks, couples holding hands, parents pushing strollers, all living lives unburdened by the weight I'd finally shed. My tiny kitchenette became a sanctuary. I made coffee when I wanted it, not when I needed, to be alert enough to drive 4 children to 3 different schools. I cooked simple meals without factoring in Lily's hatred of green vegetables or Thomas's texture sensitivities. I ate standing at the counter, savoring the silence. No squabbles to mediate, no spilled milk to mop up, no constant demands for seconds or dessert. On the 4th morning, as sunlight streamed through my single window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air, a knock at the door broke my reverie. I knew it was Michael before I even looked through the peephole. Something about the hesitancy of the knock, 3 soft raps instead of his usual confident rhythm, told me my husband had finally found me. I opened the door, steeling myself for the confrontation. Michael stood in the hallway, shoulders slumped, dark, circles under his blue eyes suggesting he hadn't slept much. The sight of him stirred conflicting emotions, love tangled with resentment, longing shadowed by betrayal. "Jess," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside wordlessly, letting him enter the studio that was so different from the chaotic house we'd shared with Vanessa. His gaze swept over my few belongings. The air, mattress in the corner, the second-hand desk where I'd set up my laptop, the single chair by the window. "So this is where you've been," he said, his tone unreadable. "This is where I've been," I confirmed, crossing my arms over my chest. He sank into the chair, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Why didn't you tell me you were leaving? Why didn't you answer my calls?" The questions sparked a flare of indignation. "Why didn't you see what was happening to me? Why did I have to reach a breaking point before you noticed?" I knew things were difficult. Difficult? I cut him off, my voice rising despite my resolve to stay calm. "Michael, I disappeared into your sister's life. I became an unpaid nanny, housekeeper, and tutor while my own dreams gathered dust. And you let it happen. He flinched as if I'd struck him. That's not fair, Jess. What's not fair is watching your wife disappear bit by bit and doing nothing to stop it. Silence fell between us, heavy with 3 years of unspoken truths. Outside, a car horn honked, a reminder of the world continuing beyond our private reckoning. The police, Michael finally said, his voice quiet. I didn't know Vanessa. Called them. I was at work. When I got home, she told me you'd left and that she'd handled it. I didn't find out about the officers until Mia told me the next day. I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. Would it have mattered if you'd known? Would you have stood up for me? The question hung in the air, and Michael's hesitation was answer enough. She showed me the texts. He finally said, after Mia told me about the police, I confronted Vanessa. She tried to spin it, but I demanded to see her phone. He looked up at me, shame evident in his eyes. I had no idea she was talking to you that way. I knew she relied on you, but the way she ordered you around... Jess, I'm so sorry. His apology, while sincere, felt inadequate against the backdrop of years of neglect. Sorry. Doesn't change what happened, Michael. It doesn't give me back the time I lost. I know. He stood up, taking a tentative step toward me. But maybe we can change what happens next. I stepped back, maintaining the distance between us. What does that mean? It means I've spent 3 days thinking about what kind of man I want to be. What kind of husband? He took a deep breath. I told Vanessa. We're moving out. Both of us, if you'll have me. I told her she needs to figure out how to be a mother to her own children. Surprise fluttered in my chest, but caution quickly tamped it down. And how did she take that? A grim smile crossed his face. About as well as you'd expect. There were tears, accusations, the whole Vanessa show. She said I was abandoning her when she needed me most. The same thing she said about me to the police, I noted bitterly. Yes, but here's the difference. This time I saw it for what it was. Manipulation. He ran a hand through his hair again, a nervous habit from childhood. I'm not saying it was easy. Those kids... His voice broke slightly. I love them too, Jess. But what Vanessa was doing to you, to us, it wasn't right. I sank down onto the edge of my air mattress, processing his words. Part of me wanted to throw my arms around him, to celebrate this long-overdue stand against his sister's manipulation. Another part remained wary, scarred by years of broken promises and divided loyalties. What about the baby? I asked quietly. Michael's expression darkened. That's another thing. I don't think there is a baby. What? I can't prove it. But the timing doesn't make sense. That guy she was seeing, Derek, he's been gone for 2 months on some sales trip. And when I pressed her about doctor's appointments, she got defensive and changed the subject. The revelation shouldn't have shocked me, but it did. You think she faked a pregnancy to keep me tied to her? I think she saw you slipping away. Your classes, your job, you were building a life outside her control. The pregnancy gave her the perfect excuse to demand more from you. He shook his head in disgust. It's sick, Jess, and I enabled it for too long. I sat with this new information, trying to process it alongside everything else. If true, it represented a level of manipulation even I hadn't attributed to Vanessa. What about your job? I asked, changing the subject slightly. Michael worked as an IT specialist at a local healthcare company, a position he'd taken specifically to be near his sister. I can transfer to the Indianapolis office. It's a longer commute, but worth it to get us out of Bloomington, away from Vanessa's orbit. He hesitated. That is, if you want that. If you still want us. The question penetrated the protective shell I'd built around myself these past few days. Did I still want us? Despite everything, did I still believe in the marriage we'd once envisioned? I don't know, Michael. I admitted honestly. I love you, but I don't trust you to put me first. Not anymore. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. I deserve that, and I know words aren't enough. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, holding it out to me. Maybe this will help. I took it cautiously, unfolding what appeared to be a course registration form from Indiana University. My name was at the top, enrolled in the graphic design certificate program for the upcoming semester. Tuition, paid in full. I can't give you back the time you lost, Michael said softly, but I can help you reclaim your future. Tears pricked at my eyes as I stared at the form. It represented more than just classes. It was tangible proof that Michael saw me, really saw me, perhaps for the first time in years. This doesn't fix everything, I said. my voice wavering slightly. I know, but it's a start. He moved toward the door, giving me space. Take all the time you need, Jess. I'll be at the Residence Inn on College Avenue when you're ready to talk more. As he reached for the doorknob, I found myself speaking. The kids, how are they? A sad smile crossed his face. They miss you, especially Thomas. He keeps asking when you're coming home. The mention of Thomas, with his gap-toothed smile and tendency to crawl into my lap for comfort, sent an ache through my heart. Tell them I miss them too. Michael nodded. I will. After he left, I sat by the window again, the registration form in my hands, watching as he crossed the street below. Part of me wanted to call him back, to accept his olive branch and begin rebuilding immediately. But another part, the part that had finally found the courage to walk away, whispered caution. 3 years of sacrifice couldn't be undone with one gesture, no matter how meaningful. The road back to trust would be long, with no guarantee of success. But for the first time since I'd packed my bag and walked out of Vanessa's house, I allowed myself to consider the possibility of reconciliation. Not just with Michael, but with my own dreams. I carefully placed the registration form on my desk and opened my laptop. It was time to start designing again. A week passed. A week of quiet mornings and peaceful nights. A week of rediscovering my passion for design as I sketched and created, fingers flying across the keyboard, bringing ideas to life. A week of cautious text exchanges with Michael, neither of us pushing too hard or expecting too much. It was a Wednesday afternoon when my phone rang with Mia's name on the screen. My heart jumped. In all our time together, Vanessa's 14-year-old daughter had rarely called me directly. Mia? I answered, concern coloring my voice. Is everything okay? Aunt Jessica, she said, her voice tight with restraint. Mom's losing it. She just fired our actual babysitter and she's telling everyone you're coming back. She keeps saying you're just being dramatic and that you'll be home any day now. I closed my eyes, processing this information. I'm not coming back, Mia. I know that, she said, surprising me with her certainty. But she doesn't, or won't admit it. And now we're stuck with no one to help, and she's talking about pulling me out of school to watch the others. Alarm shot through me. She can't do that. You're 14. You need to be in school. Try telling her that, Mia said bitterly. Ever? Since Uncle Michael moved to that hotel, she's been different, angrier. She keeps saying everyone abandons her, that she's all alone. The manipulation was classic Vanessa, but involving Mia this way crossed a line. Where is she now? Work. She'll be home around 6. Mia's voice dropped lower. Would you maybe come talk to her? Not to come back, she added hurriedly. Just to make her understand. She listens to you more than anyone. I doubted that was true, but the plea in Mia's voice was impossible to ignore. I'll come by after she gets home, but Mia, I need you to understand. I can't fix this for her. Your mom needs to step up. I know, Mia said, sounding older than her 14 years. But the little ones, they're confused and scared. After we hung up, I paced my small apartment, anxiety churning in my stomach. Confronting Vanessa again was the last thing I wanted. But those children, they deserved better than to be pawns in her game. I texted Michael, letting him know about Mia's call and my plan to visit that evening. His response was immediate. I'll meet you there. At 6:30, I parked outside the colonial house that had been both home and prison. For 3 long years, Michael's car was already in the driveway, and seeing it there, knowing he'd arrived first, ready to stand beside me, eased some of the tension in my shoulders. Before I could reach the front door, it flew open, and Thomas barreled out, his small body colliding with my legs as he wrapped his arms around me. Jessica, you came back, he cried, his face upturned and beaming. I knelt down, hugging him properly. I'm just visiting, buddy, but I missed you so much. Over his head, I saw Lily hovering in the doorway, trying to maintain the cool indifference of her 9 years, but failing as a smile tugged at her lips. Ethan, 11, and already trying so hard to be grown, stood behind her with poorly concealed relief on his face. They've missed you, Michael said, appearing, behind the children. His eyes met mine, conveying both support and caution. Vanessa's in the kitchen. I disentangled myself gently from Thomas's grip and followed Michael inside. The familiar scent of the house, laundry detergent, forgotten snacks, the lingering mustiness of an old building, washing over me with unexpected force. Vanessa sat at the kitchen table, arms crossed, her face set in the defensive mask I knew all too well. She looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that came from keeping too many plates spinning. For a moment, despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. "So," she said as I entered, "you decided to grace us with your presence." "Mia called me," I said simply, taking a seat across from her. "She's worried about you pulling her out of school to babysit." Vanessa shot a betrayed look toward the living room where the children had gathered, pretending not to listen. "Mia should mind her own business. Her education is her business," I countered, "and you can't make her responsible for childcare. That's your job, Vanessa." Color rose in her cheeks. "Don't tell me how to raise my children. Not everyone has the luxury of walking away when things get hard." Michael, who had been standing quietly near the doorway, stepped forward. "That's enough, Vanessa. Jessica didn't walk away from her responsibilities. She walked away from being used." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "Of course you take her side. You always do when you're not too busy ignoring everything that happens in this house." I raised a hand, cutting off what promised to be an unproductive argument. "I didn't come here to fight. I came because those kids deserve stability, and right now they're not getting it." "And whose fault is that?" Vanessa demanded. "You abandoned us. You and Michael both." "We didn't abandon anyone," I said firmly. "We removed ourselves from a situation that had become toxic. There's a difference." She laughed bitterly. "Toxic? I gave you a home. I made you part of this family." "No, Vanessa. You gave us a roof and called it a home while turning me into an unpaid servant. That's not family. That's exploitation." The harsh word hung in the air between us. Behind Vanessa, I could see the children watching from the living room. Mia with her arm protectively around Thomas's shoulders. Ethan and Lily standing close together. "You're being ridiculous," Vanessa finally said, but her voice had lost some of its conviction. "And selfish." "Setting boundaries isn't selfish," I replied quietly. "Neither is expecting respect." Michael moved to stand beside me, a united front. "Jess and I are willing to help with the kids, on our terms. Weekend visits, maybe one dinner a week. But the daily childcare, the school runs, the homework help, that needs to come from you, or from someone you hire and pay fairly." "With what money?" Vanessa demanded. "Do you have any idea how expensive childcare is?" "About as expensive as having another baby," I said pointedly. Vanessa's eyes widened, then narrowed as she looked between Michael and me. "He told you. Is it even true?" I asked. "Are you really pregnant, Vanessa? Or was that just another manipulation?" Her silence was damning. Michael made a disgusted sound, turning away momentarily. "I needed help," she finally said, voice small. "I could see you pulling away, focusing on your classes, that job." I panicked. The admission stunned me, not because I hadn't suspected the truth, but because Vanessa so rarely acknowledged her manipulations. In the doorway, Mia made a soft sound of distress, and I realized with horror that the children were hearing all of this. "Kids," I said gently, "why don't you go upstairs for a bit while we adults talk?" "No," Vanessa said sharply. "They should hear this. They should know that when things get tough, the people they count on will abandon them, just like their father did, just like you did." That was the moment something broke irreparably between us. Using her children as emotional weapons, deliberately inflicting pain to satisfy her own bitterness, it was unconscionable. I stood up slowly, my voice low but clear. "You're wrong, Vanessa. When things get tough, real family supports each other without exploitation. Real family respects boundaries and celebrates growth. What you're doing right now, this isn't love. It's control." I moved toward the living room, kneeling in front of the children. "I didn't abandon you," I told them, looking into each small face. "I needed to take care of myself for a while, but I will always, always care about you." Thomas flung his arms around my neck again. Lily, after a moment's hesitation, joined him. Ethan maintained his distance, but the slight nod he gave me conveyed understanding, beyond his years. And Mia looked at me with something like admiration in her eyes. "You're still going to visit, right?" Thomas asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "Whenever I can," I promised, pulling back to look at him. "And maybe sometimes you can visit me. Would you like that?" The enthusiastic nods from the younger children contrasted sharply with the stony silence emanating from the kitchen. When I stood and turned, Vanessa was gone, the back door left slightly ajar. Michael sighed heavily. "She needs time." "We all do," I replied. "But those kids need more than time. They need stability." He nodded. determination settling over his features. I'm going to call our parents. They've been too hands-off with Vanessa for too long, and I'll contact family services, not to cause trouble, but to see what support is available. As we prepared to leave, Mia caught my arm. "Thank you for coming," she said, "and for showing me it's okay to stand up for yourself." Her words stayed with me as Michael and I walked to our separate cars. The evening hadn't resolved everything, far from it, but perhaps it had planted seeds of change, not just for Vanessa, but for those children, who watched and learned from every adult in their lives. "Dinner tomorrow?" Michael asked hesitantly as we reached my car. "Just the two of us?" I studied his face, noting the hope there, the tentative reaching out. "Okay," I agreed, "but I'm not moving back in, Michael. Not yet." "I know," he said, acceptance tempering his smile. One step at a time. As I drove away, I glanced in the rear view, mirror at the house growing smaller behind me. This time, I wasn't running away. I was moving forward, one careful step after another. The Italian restaurant was small and intimate, tucked away on a quiet street far from Vanessa's neighborhood. White tablecloths and soft candlelight created pools of warmth in the dimly lit space. It felt strange sitting across from Michael in this romantic setting. Strange and yet familiar, like finding an old photograph and recognizing a younger version of yourself. "You look beautiful," Michael said, his eyes lingering on me in a way they hadn't in years. I smoothed my hands over the simple black dress I'd purchased that afternoon, my first non-essential purchase since leaving Vanessa's house. "Thank you." We ordered wine and appetizers, carefully, navigating small talk until our glasses were half empty. Then, with liquid courage warming my veins, I asked the question that had been gnawing at me. "Why did you let it happen, Michael?" My voice was soft but steady. "You must have seen what your sister was doing to me. To us." He set his glass down, fingers lingering on the stem. "I think I was trapped in patterns established long before you came into our lives. Vanessa has always been the crisis, the one needing rescue." His eyes met mine, remorse evident in their depths. Our parents were distant, emotionally and physically. Dad traveled constantly. Mom was focused on her social circles. Vanessa and I raised each other in a way. "That explains the closeness," I acknowledged, "but not the blind spot." "No," he agreed. "That comes from guilt." "Guilt?" Michael sighed, shoulders slumping slightly. "When Vanessa got pregnant with Mia at 19, our parents essentially cut her off. They saw it as her throwing away her future, making the same mistakes Mom had made. I was in college, focused on my own life, my own plans. I didn't fight for her. I didn't stand up to our parents." He twisted his wedding ring absently. By the time I realized how alone she was, Mia was 2, and Vanessa was pregnant with Ethan. The waiter arrived with our entrees, momentarily interrupting the confession. When we were alone again, I prompted gently, "So you've been making up for it ever since?" "Trying to," he admitted. "Failing spectacularly, it seems. Because in trying to atone for abandoning her once, I ended up abandoning you over and over." The honesty hit me like a physical blow, both painful and cleansing. "I needed to hear that," I said quietly. "I know, and I need to say it." He reached across the table, his fingers stopping just short of mine. "I failed you, Jess. I put my sister's manipulation and neediness above your happiness, your dreams, your basic dignity. I can't undo that, but I can promise to do better, to be better." I studied his face in the candlelight. This man I'd fallen in love with in Chicago, back when we were both younger and unburdened by the complexities of his family dynamics. The earnestness in his expression reminded me of why I'd said yes when he proposed on the shores of Lake Michigan. "I've been thinking about what better looks like," I said, tentatively meeting his fingers with my own. "For us, I mean." Hope flickered across his features. And I think it starts with separate spaces for now. You in Indianapolis, me here finishing my certificate program, weekend visits, phone calls, dating each other again, essentially." His fingers curled around mine. "I'd like that. No rushing back to where we were," I continued, "because where we were wasn't working even before. Vanessa's house. We need to rebuild from the foundation." "Agreed," Michael said, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "And what about the kids?" The question pulled at my heart. Despite everything, I couldn't simply excise those 4 children from my life. I want to see them, not as their primary caregiver, but as an aunt. A real one, not a substitute parent. Michael nodded. "Vanessa's been quiet since your confrontation." My parents are finally stepping up. Mom's staying with her for a few weeks, and Dad's helping financially so she can hire proper childcare. That's a start, I acknowledged, though skepticism colored my tone. Vanessa had a way of reverting to old patterns once the initial intervention faded. It's more than that, Michael continued. Dad made it clear that his financial help comes with conditions. Vanessa has to attend therapy, and she's enrolled in a job training program to qualify for better positions. I raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. And she agreed to all this? She didn't have much choice. It was either accept help with strings attached or face losing the house. He sighed. I'm not naive enough to think she'll change overnight, or maybe even at all, but there's a chance. And in the meantime, those kids have more support than just her. Our conversation shifted to lighter topics as we finished our meal. My design projects, his work, movies we wanted to see. For dessert, we split a tiramisu, our forks occasionally battling playfully for the choicest bites. By the time he walked me to my car, something had loosened in my chest, a tentative warmth replacing the cold knot of resentment I'd been carrying. Thank you for tonight, Michael said, standing close but not touching me. For giving us, another chance. I smiled up at him, feeling younger and lighter than I had in years. One day at a time, right? One day at a time, he agreed, leaning down slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't. His lips met mine in a gentle kiss that felt both like a reunion and a new beginning. The next morning, I woke to sunshine streaming through my window and a text from Michael. Last night was perfect, counting the days until I see you again. For the first time since leaving Vanessa's house, my smile didn't feel like an act of defiance. It simply felt like joy. The following weeks settled into a new rhythm. Mondays through Fridays were dedicated to my classes and a new part-time job at a local design firm that had hired me as an intern after seeing my portfolio. Weekends alternated between Michael visiting me in Bloomington and me driving to his apartment in Indianapolis, both of us rediscovering each other away from the shadow of his sister's influence. On Sunday afternoons, I would visit Vanessa's house, never staying long, never alone with her, but spending precious hours with the children who still held pieces of my heart. Sometimes we'd go to the park or for ice cream, Michael and I together, creating small moments of normalcy in lives that had been disrupted by adult conflicts. Vanessa remained cool toward me, but the overt hostility had faded to something more like resignation. Under her mother-in-law's watchful eye, she had little choice but to accept the new boundaries. And perhaps, though I hesitated to hope too much, the therapy was actually helping her recognize her own patterns. One rainy Tuesday, almost 2 months after that first dinner with Michael, I received an unexpected visitor at my design firm. I was hunched over my computer tweaking a logo for a local business when my supervisor appeared at my desk. Jessica, there's someone asking for you at the front. A young lady. Puzzled, I made my way to the reception area, stopping short when I saw Mia standing there, her backpack slung over one shoulder, rain dampening her dark hair. Mia, is everything okay? Shouldn't you be in school? She shifted uncomfortably. It's a half day. Teacher. Development or something. Her eyes darted around the office. Can we talk? Somewhere private? Alarmed now, I led her to a small conference room, closing the door behind us. What's wrong? Are your brothers and sister okay? They're fine, she assured me quickly. It's Mom. My stomach tightened. What about her? Mia took a deep breath. She's been crying. A lot. Like at night when she thinks we're asleep. She twisted the strap of her backpack. Last night I heard her talking to Grandma. She said she knows she messed everything up, that she's been selfish and manipulative, that she's afraid she's going to end up completely alone. I sat down slowly, processing this information. People say a lot of things when they're upset, Mia. This was different, Mia insisted. She wasn't even crying then. She was just honest, in a way I've never heard before. Her eyes, so like Michael's, met mine directly. She asked Grandma how she could ever make things right with you, and Grandma said maybe she can't, that some bridges stay burned. The image of Vanessa, proud, controlling Vanessa, acknowledging her wrongs, was difficult to reconcile with the woman I knew. Why are you telling me this, Mia? Because I think she means it. The therapy, the job training. She's actually trying. Mia hesitated. And because I miss how things were before. Not the bad stuff, she added hastily, but having you around, having Uncle Michael there, being a family in our messed up way. I reached out, covering her hand with mine. We're still family, Mia. That hasn't changed, but the way we interact needed to change. I know. She looked down at our hands. Mom knows too. That's why she won't call you herself. She thinks you'll never forgive her, and she says she wouldn't blame you. For a moment, I sat in silence, considering the complexity of the situation. Vanessa had hurt me deeply, had taken advantage of my kindness and Michael's guilt for years. And yet, if she was genuinely trying to change, didn't that deserve some acknowledgement? I can't promise anything, I finally said, but I'll think about talking to her, not right away, but maybe soon. Relief washed over Mia's face. That's all I'm asking. She stood, readjusting her backpack. I should go. Mom thinks I'm at the library. I walked her to the door, giving her a tight hug before she left. Thank you for coming. To me, Mia, it means a lot that you still trust me. She gave me a half smile, suddenly looking so grown up it made my heart ache. You're the one adult who's always been straight with me. Why wouldn't I trust you? As I watched her walk away through the rain, I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Part of me was wary of being drawn back into Vanessa's orbit, fearful of losing the independence I'd fought so hard to reclaim. Another part recognized that true healing, for all of us, might require more than distance and boundaries. It might require something more difficult: forgiveness. That night, I called Michael and told him about Mia's visit. Do you think Vanessa put her up to it? He asked, skepticism evident in his voice. No, I said, surprising myself with my certainty. Mia's too smart for that, and too honest. So, what are you thinking? I sighed, looking out at the rain still pattering against my window. I'm thinking that people can change if they want to badly enough, and that holding on to anger, no matter how justified, eventually becomes its own kind of prison. You're considering talking to her, Michael said, not a question but a statement. Eventually. Not as her babysitter or servant, but as, I don't know, someone who was part of her life, someone who still cares about her children, someone who married into her family. Michael added softly. Yes, that too. I pulled my knees up to my chest, curling into the corner of my small couch. What do you think? I think you have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known, he replied, and that Vanessa doesn't deserve your forgiveness. But maybe that's not the point. No, I agreed. The point is that I deserve peace, and maybe this is part of finding it. Later that night, after we'd said our goodbyes and I'd prepared for bed, I sat at my desk and opened a blank document on my laptop. The cursor blinked at me, patient and expectant. After a moment's hesitation, I began to type, Dear Vanessa, Mia came to see me today. The coffee shop was neutral territory, not Vanessa's house, where old dynamics might reassert themselves, nor my apartment, where I needed to maintain sanctuary. We chose a quiet corner table, far from the counter where I had once worked part-time while living under her roof. Vanessa arrived 5 minutes early, a departure from her habitual lateness. She looked different, thinner, more subdued, her usual perfectly styled hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. When she spotted me, uncertainty flickered across her face before she schooled her features and approached. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding into the chair across from mine. No kiss on the cheek, no presumption of affection, another departure from her usual performance of sisterly closeness. Thanks for coming, I replied neutrally, pushing a cappuccino toward her. I remembered your order. She smiled faintly, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. You always did notice things about people, what they needed, what they liked. Her smile faded. I took advantage of that. The direct acknowledgement caught me off guard. I had prepared for defensiveness, for the subtle manipulations Vanessa had always deployed to maintain control. This straightforward admission left me momentarily speechless. Yes, you did, I finally said, neither accusatory nor forgiving, simply stating fact. Vanessa nodded, her eyes on the coffee between her hands. I don't expect you to believe this, but I didn't start out intending to use you the way I did. At first, I was just grateful for the help. What changed? She looked up then, her gaze direct in a way that reminded me she was Michael's sister after all. I got comfortable. I saw how capable you were with the kids, how they responded to you. And I was tired, Jess. So tired of doing it all alone. You weren't alone, though, I pointed out. Michael was there. Your parents, when you let them be. It wasn't the same. Michael helped financially, but the day-to-day grind, that was all on me until you came along. She took a sip of her cappuccino. And my parents, Well, they made it clear from the start that my choices were my burden to bear. I understood what she was saying, could even sympathize with the exhaustion of single parenthood, but it didn't excuse what came next. So when you found someone who could shoulder that burden, you just transferred it, without asking, without gratitude. Yes. The admission came quietly, but without hesitation. And then I convinced myself it was your duty, that because you married Michael, because you lived in my house, you owed me that labor, that sacrifice. Hearing her articulate the dynamic so clearly was oddly validating. For years, I'd tried to explain to Michael how his sister's need for help had morphed into something exploitative. Now here she was, naming it herself. What changed, Vanessa? Why the sudden self-awareness? She gave a short, humorless laugh. Nothing sudden about it. 2 months of intensive therapy, courtesy of my father's ultimatum. Turns out when someone makes you examine your patterns twice a week under threat of losing your home, you start to see things differently. There was a bitterness in her tone, but also something else. Resignation, perhaps. Or acceptance. Mom's been relentless, too, she continued. She moved out last week, but not before making sure I understood exactly how I'd been treating you. And Michael. She traced the rim of her cup with one finger. Apparently, I'm my father's daughter. After all, controlling, entitled, convinced the world revolves around my needs. I studied her face, looking for signs of the performative vulnerability she'd often used to manipulate sympathy. Instead, I saw genuine discomfort, the kind that comes with confronting ugly truths about oneself. The fake pregnancy, I said, voicing the betrayal that had cut deepest. Why? Shame colored her cheeks. Desperation. I could feel you slipping away. Your classes, your job, your growing independence. I panicked. It was the only card I had left to play. She shook her head, disgust evident in her expression. It's the thing I'm most ashamed of. Using something as significant as new life as a manipulation tactic. It was cruel, unforgivable. Yes, I agreed. It was. Silence fell between us. Broken. Only by the ambient noise of the coffee shop, espresso machines hissing, casual conversations at nearby tables, the bell above the door announcing new customers. I don't expect forgiveness, Vanessa finally said. I wouldn't forgive me either. But I needed you to hear that I know what I did, that I'm trying to change. For my kids, for myself. I took a slow sip of my latte, gathering my thoughts. Change isn't just about recognition, Vanessa. It's about sustained effort over time. I know, and I'm committed to that effort. The job training program, the therapy, learning to be a real mother to my children instead of outsourcing that responsibility. She straightened her shoulders slightly. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm just asking for the chance to show that change is possible. The sincerity in her voice stirred something in me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the first seedling of possibility. Why does it matter what I think? You have your parents' support now, proper childcare, resources you didn't have before. Because you matter to my children, she said simply. Because despite everything I did, you loved them. Really loved them. Not just as an extension of your relationship with Michael or obligation to me. Her perception surprised me. I hadn't thought Vanessa noticed or valued my genuine attachment to her children. And, she added more hesitantly, because I think we could have been friends, real friends, in another life. One where I wasn't so broken and desperate. The admission hung in the air between us, vulnerable and raw. I thought about Mia's visit to my workplace, her conviction that her mother was genuinely changing. I thought about Thomas asking for me every time I visited, about Lily's cautious smiles, about Ethan's quiet presence. I can't promise anything, I finally said, but I'm willing to watch and wait, to see if this change is real. Relief washed over Vanessa's features. That's more than I deserve. It's not about what you deserve, I clarified. It's about what those children need. They need adults who can put aside their differences, who can model healthy relationships even after conflict. She nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes, coexisting peacefully. For them. For now, I agreed. The rest, we'll see. As we finished our coffees, the conversation shifted to more practical matters. The children's schedules, Vanessa's job prospects, the boundaries that would need to remain firm for any relationship to move forward. There were no tearful hugs or dramatic declarations of sisterhood, just two women negotiating a delicate peace. When we parted outside the coffee shop, Vanessa hesitated, then extended her hand formally. Thank you, Jessica, for hearing me out. I took her hand. Gesture businesslike, yet somehow significant. Thank you for finally seeing me, Vanessa. As a person, not just a resource. She flinched slightly but nodded, accepting the hard truth. As she walked away, her posture was different. Not the confident strut she'd always affected, but not defeated either. Just human, flawed and trying. That evening, as Michael and I spoke on the phone, I recounted, the meeting. I don't know if she can really change, I concluded, but I think she's genuinely trying. That's more than I expected, Michael admitted. When you told me you were meeting her, I was worried she'd find some way to pull you back into her web. She might have once, I said, realizing the truth as I spoke it. But I'm different now, too. Stronger, clearer about my boundaries. Yes, you are, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. It's one of the many things I love about you. The words, simple as they were, warmed me from within. We had been careful with declarations of love since our separation, both of us aware of the work still needed to rebuild what had been damaged. I love you too, I replied softly. Enough to do this right, however long it takes. Speaking of doing things right, Michael said, his tone shifting to something more nervous. I've been thinking about our living situation. My guard immediately rose. Michael, I'm not ready to move back in with Vanessa, even with all these changes. God, no, he interrupted. That's not what I meant at all. Actually, I've been looking at houses in Bloomington. For us. Oh, I said, surprised. But your job in Indianapolis? I spoke with my boss. There's an opening at the Bloomington office. Smaller role, slightly less pay, but Jess, I want to be where you are. Where we can build something together. Away from Vanessa's house, but close enough that we can maintain relationships with the kids. The thought of a home that was truly ours. Not a temporary apartment. Not Vanessa's spare room, but a place built on our terms. Sent a thrill through me. Are you sure? The pay cut? I'm sure. It's worth it to be with you, to do this right. His voice softened. Besides, you'll be finishing your certificate soon. With both our incomes, we'll be fine. Hope, so long deferred, bloomed fully in my chest. When can I see these houses you've been looking at? This weekend? I've narrowed it down to 3 that I think you'll love. As we discussed neighborhoods and architectural styles, budget considerations, and must-have features, I felt the last pieces of resentment melting away. Not because I had forgotten the pain of the past 3 years, but because I was finally looking toward a future where that pain no longer defined me. Defined us. Later that night, I sat at my window, watching the stars emerge in the clear September sky. In just a few months, my life had transformed, from servitude disguised as family obligation to genuine independence, and now to the possibility of a new beginning with the man I had never stopped loving. I thought about Vanessa, about her tentative steps toward change, about the children who connected us despite everything. I thought about Michael, finding his way back to me through honesty and concrete actions rather than empty promises. And I thought about myself, how far I had come from that moment when I stood in Vanessa's driveway, confronting a police officer, finding my voice for the first time in years. The smile that spread across my face wasn't about triumph or vindication. It was about peace. Hard-won, carefully tended, gloriously real. The small craftsman house on Maple Street wasn't perfect. The kitchen needed updating, the backyard was overgrown, and the master bathroom's vintage charm was really just a euphemism for requires complete renovation. But the moment I stepped through the front door, something settled in my chest. A recognition, a certainty. This is it, I said to Michael, standing in the sun-dappled living room with its bay window and built-in bookshelves. This is home. He squeezed my hand, relief and joy mingling in his expression. I was hoping you'd say that. It's my favorite, too. Our real estate agent, a brisk woman named Diane, beamed at us. Shall we put in an offer, then? It's priced well for the neighborhood, but we should move quickly. 2 hours later, paperwork signed and earnest money deposited, Michael and I celebrated with lunch at a cafe downtown. The November sunlight slanted through the windows, warming our table as we discussed paint colors and furniture arrangements. I can't believe we're doing this, I said, a giddy nervousness bubbling up inside me. Our own place. Our fresh start. Michael reached across the table, his fingers, intertwining with mine. I can't think of anything I want more. Not even that promotion they offered you to stay in Indianapolis? I teased, though the question held a hint of real concern. The Bloomington position was indeed a step down in both responsibility and compensation. Not even close, he assured me, his eyes steady on mine. Some things are worth more than a title or a bigger paycheck. Being with you, building our life together, that's what matters. The conviction in his voice soothed the last whisper of doubt. Over the past 4 months, Michael had proven his commitment through consistent action, respecting my boundaries, supporting my education, and most importantly, maintaining healthy limits with Vanessa, even as our relationship with her gradually improved. My certificate program would finish in December, and the design firm where I interned had offered me a full-time position starting in January. Things were falling into place with a symmetry that felt almost too perfect after the chaos of the past few years. "Have you told Vanessa about the house yet?" I asked, the question dimming our celebration slightly. Michael shook his head. "Not yet. I wanted us to secure it first, make sure it was really happening." He hesitated. "I'm seeing her tomorrow. The kids have that Thanksgiving pageant at school." "Right." I took a sip of my iced tea. "Do you want me to come with you?" "For the pageant, I mean." The offer surprised both of us. While I'd maintained contact with the children through carefully structured visits, I'd avoided most school functions to prevent awkward encounters with other parents who had witnessed the police incident months earlier. "Really?" Michael's face brightened. "The kids would love that, especially Thomas. He's playing a pilgrim." "Then I'll be there," I said decisively. "We can tell Vanessa about the house afterward." The next afternoon found me sitting in the elementary school auditorium, surrounded by parents, clutching smartphones and program booklets. Michael sat beside me, our shoulders touching, a united front. 3 rows ahead, Vanessa's ponytail was visible, her mother beside her providing the additional support that had become routine in recent months. The pageant was exactly what one would expect from a group of elementary schoolers. Endearingly chaotic, with forgotten lines, crooked construction, paper hats, and earnest enthusiasm. Thomas spotted us mid-performance, his face lighting up as he waved vigorously, nearly knocking off his pilgrim hat. Lily, playing a Native American, in a costume that made me wince at its cultural stereotyping, performed her part with solemn dignity, only occasionally glancing our way for approval. Afterward, in the bustling hallway filled with proud parents and sugar-high children, Thomas barreled into my legs, his paper collar askew. "Jessica, you came!" he exclaimed, looking up at me with the unguarded joy only a 6-year-old can muster. I knelt down to his level, straightening his collar. "Of course I did. You were the best pilgrim on that stage." He beamed, then leaned in to whisper with childish lack of discretion, "Mom said you might be too busy. But I told her you'd come anyway because you love us." The simple truth of his statement caught me off guard. Despite everything, that fact had never changed. I did love these children. The politics and pain between the adults in their lives had complicated things, but the love remained, steady and true. "You were right," I whispered back, giving him a quick hug. Lily approached more, cautiously, her dark eyes serious. "Did you see my dance?" she asked, feigning nonchalance, though I could tell the answer mattered to her. "I did. You were graceful and poised, just like a real dancer." She allowed herself a small smile. "Mom's been taking me to real dance classes now, ballet on Tuesdays." "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely pleased. Lily's interest in dance had often been dismissed by Vanessa as impractical and expensive. This change represented real growth. Vanessa approached then, her mother hovering a few steps behind. The tension in the air was palpable but not hostile, more like the cautious formality of former adversaries finding themselves at the same diplomatic function. "Thanks for coming," Vanessa said, her tone carefully neutral. "The kids were excited when they saw you." "They did a great job," I replied, matching her polite distance. Thomas remembered all his lines. A flash of genuine pride crossed Vanessa's face. He practiced every night for 2 weeks. This small exchange, mundane, ordinary, civilized, felt like a minor miracle given where we'd been just months earlier. Michael, sensing the fragile piece, placed his hand lightly at the, small of my back. "Vanessa, do you have a minute? Jess and I have some news we'd like to share." Wariness immediately replaced the momentary warmth in her expression. "What kind of news?" "Good news," I assured her quickly. "At least we think so." Her mother stepped forward. "Why don't I take the children for some refreshments in the cafeteria? You 3 can talk." Once the children had been whisked away, promising to save us cookies, we moved to a quieter corner of the hallway. Vanessa crossed her arms over her chest, a defensive posture but less aggressive than it would have been before. "We bought a house," Michael said directly. "Here in Bloomington. I'm transferring to the local office next month. Vanessa's eyebrows rose, surprise evident on her face. A house? I thought she stopped herself, recalibrating. That's congratulations. It's on Maple Street, I added. About 15 minutes from you. Close enough that we can still see the kids regularly, but your own space. Vanessa finished for me, understanding darkening her eyes. Not under my roof. Yes, Michael confirmed. Our own space. A complicated series of emotions flickered across Vanessa's face. Hurt, resignation, perhaps a flash of the old resentment. But then, with visible effort, she settled on a small, tight smile. That makes sense. You deserve your own place. She hesitated, then added, Will you still come for Sunday dinner sometimes? The question revealed vulnerability beneath the composed exterior. Sunday dinners had become a tentative tradition over the past 2 months. Neutral ground where we could all interact with minimal pressure. Of course, Michael said, as I nodded in agreement. And the kids can visit us too, I offered. Once we're settled, they'll each have their own drawer for pajamas and toothbrushes. Something in Vanessa's posture eased at this concrete evidence that her children would still have a place in our lives. They'd like that, she said softly. Then, with a hint of her old humor, especially if your new place has a yard. This apartment living is killing them. No space to run. It has a yard, I confirmed. Overgrown right now, but with potential. Ethan could help you clear it, she suggested. He needs more outdoor projects. Too much video game time lately. The offer surprised me. Vanessa voluntarily suggesting her child spend time away from her control. Michael caught my eye, his expression mirroring my own. Cautious optimism. That would be great, I said. Maybe during winter break. Vanessa nodded, then glanced toward the cafeteria. I should check on the kids. My mother means well, but she spoils them rotten with sugar. As she walked away, her steps measured and controlled, Michael turned to me. That went better than I expected. Progress, I agreed. Real progress. Our closing date was set for December 15th, giving us just enough time to move in before Christmas. My studio apartment lease ended perfectly on the 20th, and Michael had already given notice at his Indianapolis rental. The timing felt significant. A new year approaching. New beginnings aligned like stars in a favorable constellation. The weeks flew by in a blur of packing boxes, signing papers, and final exams for my certificate program. By the time I submitted my last project, a complete rebranding for a local nonprofit that had earned effusive praise from my professors, the reality of our imminent move had fully settled in. On moving day, a surprise awaited us at the Maple Street house. As our small, rented moving truck pulled up to the curb, I spotted not just the expected moving company van, but several familiar cars parked along the street. Is that Vanessa's car? I asked Michael, peering through the windshield. He looked as surprised as I felt. And my parents' SUV. We approached the front porch with caution, only to find it bustling with activity. Vanessa's 4 children were stringing holiday lights along the railing under the supervision of Michael's father. Through the open front door, I could see Michael's mother arranging something in the kitchen. What's all this? Michael called out as we climbed the steps. Mia looked up from her light-hanging duties, her smile tentative but genuine. Surprise housewarming. Mom said we should help you get settled. I turned to find Vanessa emerging from the side. Yard, work gloves on her hands, a rake propped against her shoulder. Hope you don't mind, she said, an uncharacteristic uncertainty in her voice. The kids wanted to help, and, well, I remembered how overwhelming moving day can be. The gesture, practical, thoughtful, and completely unexpected, left me momentarily speechless. Michael stepped into the silence. This is... wow. Thank you. All of you. His mother appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a dish towel. We've got lunch ready whenever you are. Nothing fancy, just sandwiches and soup to keep everyone going. As I followed Michael inside our new home, I was struck by the strange symmetry of the moment. The same family that had once consumed my identity was now helping establish our independence. The same people who had witnessed my lowest moment, standing humiliated in a driveway while police lights flashed, were now part of this new beginning. Thomas tugged at my sleeve, pulling me from my thoughts. Jessica, come see. I helped Grandma make your bed. I know how to do hospital corners now. As he dragged me upstairs, chattering excitedly about his newfound bed-making skills, I caught Vanessa watching us from the hallway. Our eyes met briefly, an understanding passing between us. Not friendship, not yet. Maybe not ever. But something like respect. Something like peace. Later, as dusk settled over our new home and the helpers departed, the children reluctant, extracting promises of a proper tour next time, Michael and I stood in our empty living room, surrounded by boxes but filled with possibility. "Well," he said, pulling me into his arms. "That was unexpected." I leaned into his embrace, exhausted but content. It was, in a good way. "You know what this means, don't you?" He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. "We're going to have to host Christmas now. They've seen the house. There's no escape." I laughed, the sound echoing in the unfurnished room. "I think we can manage that, as long as it's on our terms." "Always," he promised. "From now on, everything is on our terms." As darkness fell outside our new windows, we christened our home the only way that felt right, with takeout pizza on the floor, planning our future one room at a time, free and together at last. 6 months passed in a blur of paint samples, furniture deliveries, and the gradual transformation of a house into a home. Spring turned to summer, bringing longer days and the first harvest from the small vegetable garden Michael and I had planted with Ethan's enthusiastic help. The overgrown backyard had been tamed into a space where weekend barbecues and impromptu soccer matches could coexist, where Thomas could build precarious forts and Lily could practice dance routines on the patch of lawn we kept meticulously mowed. On a warm July evening, I stood at my kitchen window, watching Michael teach Ethan the finer points of grilling hamburgers, while Thomas and one of his school friends constructed an elaborate water balloon battlefield. The domesticity of the scene struck me with unexpected force, this peaceful, ordinary moment so far removed from where we'd been just 1 year earlier. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "Can we talk tonight? Alone?" A flutter of concern went through me. At 15, Mia had become increasingly independent, navigating the complex waters of high school with the same quiet resilience she'd always shown. Our relationship had evolved into something special. Not quite mother-daughter, more than aunt-niece, a unique bond forged through shared experiences and mutual respect. I texted back, "Of course. After dinner?" Her response came quickly. "Perfect, thanks." The evening unfolded with comfortable familiarity. Burgers and corn on the cob eaten at the patio table, popsicles for dessert, the younger children's sticky fingers requiring multiple washings. As dusk approached, Vanessa arrived to collect her brood right on schedule. Our custody arrangement, while informal, had settled into a predictable rhythm. Friday night sleepovers at our house twice a month, Sunday dinners at Vanessa's, and occasional weeknight visits when schedules aligned. "Mom, I'm staying a little longer," Mia announced as her siblings gathered their belongings. "Jessica's going to help me with something. I'll walk home after." Vanessa glanced between us, curiosity evident in her expression. Over the months, her relationship with Mia had improved dramatically, therapy for both of them having smoothed many of the rough edges, but there remained topics Mia preferred to discuss with me. "All right," Vanessa agreed, no trace of the territorial jealousy that would have colored such an interaction in the past. "Just be home by 9. Text me if you need a ride." After the others had departed, Michael tactfully retreating to his home office to give us privacy, Mia and I settled on the porch swing, the evening air still warm but softened by a gentle breeze. "So," I prompted gently, "what's on your mind?" Mia twisted a strand of dark hair around her finger, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. "I got accepted to that summer writing program, the one at the university." "Mia, that's wonderful news," I exclaimed, genuinely thrilled. The program was highly competitive, accepting only 20 high school students each year for an intensive 2-week workshop. "When did you find out?" "This morning." The email came while Mom was at work. She hesitated. "I haven't told her yet." I understood immediately. Writing had been Mia's private passion for years, one she'd kept hidden from Vanessa out of a well-founded fear that it would be dismissed as impractical, or worse, commandeered and controlled like so many other aspects of her life. "You're worried about her reaction," I said. Not a question, but a recognition. Mia nodded. "It's not like it used to be. She's better now, a lot better. But this is important to me, and if she doesn't support it, it would hurt more than if she dismissed something you didn't care about." I finished for her. "Exactly." Mia looked up at me, vulnerability plain in her eyes. Would you be there when I tell her?" "Not to speak for me," she added quickly. "Just to be there. It helps sometimes, having another adult in the room. Keeps her more mindful." The request touched me deeply, representing a level of trust I didn't take lightly. "Of course I will. If your mom is okay with it." "She will be," Mia said with surprising confidence. "She respects you now. Even when you guys disagree, she listens to you. This assessment surprised me. While Vanessa and I had reached a detente of sorts, I had never considered that she might actually respect my opinion. When do you want to tell her? Tomorrow. Maybe you could come for coffee in the morning before she leaves for work? We made the arrangements, and as promised, I arrived at Vanessa's house the next morning, coffee carrier in hand, a peace offering and liquid courage combined. Vanessa opened the door in her work clothes, surprise registering briefly before understanding dawned. Mia asked you to come, she said, stepping back to let me enter. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I assured her, handing over the cardboard tray. She just has some news she wanted to share with you and asked if I could be here too. A shadow of the old suspicion crossed Vanessa's face, but she shook it off visibly. All right, she's in the kitchen. Mia sat at the table, nervously arranging and rearranging a stack of papers, printouts about the writing program. I realized, prepared like exhibits for a trial. When she saw us enter, she straightened her shoulders in a gesture so reminiscent of Michael that it made my heart ache with tenderness. Mom, I have something to tell you, she began, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her posture. Vanessa took a seat across from her daughter, accepting the coffee I handed her with a nod of thanks. I'm listening. Mia launched into her prepared speech about the writing program, its prestige, the opportunities it offered, the fact that her English teacher had encouraged her to apply without any prompting. As she spoke, I watched Vanessa's expression shift from cautious neutrality to growing surprise. You never told me you were interested in writing, she said when Mia paused for breath. Her tone wasn't accusatory, merely puzzled. I didn't think you'd take it seriously, Mia admitted. You've always pushed for practical things, math, science, stuff with clear career paths. Hurt flashed across Vanessa's features, quickly replaced by thoughtful consideration. That's fair. I haven't always been supportive of creative pursuits. She reached for one of the printouts, scanning it with genuine interest. This looks like an amazing opportunity, Mia. The tension visibly drained from Mia's body. So, you're okay with me doing it? It's 2 weeks, and I'd stay in the dorms on campus. Vanessa looked up from the paper, meeting her daughter's hopeful gaze. I'm more than okay with it. I'm proud of you. Getting accepted to something this competitive. That's incredible. Mia's face lit up with surprise and joy. Really? Really? Vanessa reached across the table, covering Mia's hand with her own. I know I haven't always been the most supportive mother, but I'm trying to do better. To see you, the real you, not just who I want you to be. I felt like an intruder witnessing this intimate moment between mother and daughter, but when Mia's eyes sought mine over Vanessa's shoulder, I gave her an encouraging smile. This was growth, real, measurable growth from a woman who once would have seen her daughter's independent interests as a threat rather than something to celebrate. Later, as I prepared to leave, Vanessa walked me to the door while Mia called the program coordinator to confirm her acceptance. Thank you, Vanessa said quietly, for being there for her, for being someone she can trust. I met her gaze directly. She's an amazing young woman. You should be proud. I am. Vanessa hesitated, then added, I know our relationship is complicated, but I want you to know that I appreciate the role you play in my children's lives. You give them something I can't. The acknowledgement, offered without resentment or manipulation, represented perhaps the most significant shift in our dynamic. They're lucky to have both of us, I replied, meaning it. Different perspectives, different strengths. Vanessa nodded, a small smile lifting the corner of her mouth. Who would have thought we'd end up here after everything? Not me, I admitted with a soft laugh, but I'm glad we did. As I drove home, I reflected on the journey of the past year, from servitude disguised as family obligation to this new balance we'd all found. Michael and I had our home, our careers, our reclaimed relationship. Vanessa had her improved parenting, her therapy-enhanced self-awareness, her gradually stabilizing life. The children had the security of knowing all the adults in their lives were finally putting their needs first, working together despite past conflicts. When I pulled into our driveway, Michael was kneeling in the front garden, planting the chrysanthemums we'd bought the previous weekend. He looked up at the sound of my car, his smile immediate and warm. How'd it go? He called as I approached. Better than expected, I replied, stopping to admire his handiwork. Your sister is full of surprises these days. He sat back on his heels, wiping soil from his hands. Good surprises, I hope. Yes, good ones. I helped him to his feet, not caring about the dirt transferred to my palms. She's really trying, Michael, and succeeding more often than not. Relief and happiness mingled in his expression. I'm glad. For the kids, for her, for all of us. We stood together on our lawn, surrounded by the home we'd built, the life we'd reclaimed. In the distance, neighbors' wind chimes sang in the summer breeze, a gentle counterpoint to the comfortable silence between us. I have news too, Michael said after a moment, a hint of excitement in his voice. Remember that graphic design contract we bid on last month? The Heritage Tourism Project? My pulse quickened. We had recently launched a small side business together, combining my design skills with Michael's technical expertise. We got it? His grin widened. We got it. Full creative control, decent budget, and it could lead to more government contracts if we do well. Joy bubbled up inside me, not just at the professional opportunity, but at what it represented. A partnership of equals, a shared dream taking flight, a future limited only by our imagination and effort. We should celebrate, I said, already mentally planning a special dinner. I was thinking the same thing. Michael pulled me close, his arms strong and secure around my waist. In fact, I was thinking we should celebrate with more than just dinner. Something in his tone made me pull back slightly, studying his face. What do you mean? He reached into his pocket, producing a small velvet box that made my breath catch. I know we're already married, but I thought, after everything we've been through, everything we've rebuilt, maybe we deserve a fresh start here too. He opened the box to reveal a ring. Not the modest band he'd given me when we were younger and just starting out, but something new. A sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and unique. Jessica Hayes, he said softly, would you do me the honor of renewing our vows? Not because the old ones weren't enough, but because we're not the same people who made them. We're stronger now, wiser, and I want to promise this new version of you everything all over again. Tears welled in my eyes. Unexpected, but welcome. Yes, I whispered, my voice catching. Yes, I'd like that very much. As he slipped the ring onto my finger alongside my original wedding band, I thought about the moment a year ago when I had stood in Vanessa's driveway, police lights painting the scene in harsh red and blue, my world collapsing and rebuilding all at once. How could I have known then that the hardest decision of my life, walking away, choosing myself, would lead not to an ending, but to this new beginning? Michael's lips met mine in a kiss that tasted, of possibility and promise, of lessons learned and battles won. When we parted, both slightly breathless, he pressed his forehead to mine. I love you, Jess, he said simply. Thank you for not giving up on us. Never, I assured him, my hands cradling his face. Some things are worth fighting for, worth rebuilding. Inside our home, our sanctuary, our triumph, our reward, the phone rang. Likely, one of the children calling with some small crisis or exciting news. Outside, the summer sun warmed our garden, coaxing growth from seeds planted in hope. And between us, a bridge carefully reconstructed from the ruins of what came before, stronger now for having been broken and mindfully repaired. I had walked away once to save myself, but in that salvation, I had discovered something profound, that true family, real love, doesn't demand servitude or sacrifice. It offers freedom, respect, and the space to grow into your fullest self. Sometimes you have to leave to find your way home again. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is put down a burden that was never yours to carry. As we walked hand in hand into our house, I couldn't stop smiling.